Welcome this evening to this edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series, the book review session. Thank you for your patience. It has been a while, but it's going to be worthwhile your time tonight. Today, we are going to be reviewing a book entitled A New Employee Contract: How to Find, Keep, and Elevate Gen Z Talents. It's quite a mouthful, but I'll say it again. The New Employee Contract: How to Find, Keep, and Elevate Gen Z Talents. And the author of the book is Anthony Onesto. Anthony Onesto. Ladies and gentlemen, our reviewers tonight, the one and only dependable Ezine Yora, Chief HR and Operations Officer of Primo Vision, and the ever reliable, the queen herself, who is the information officer with Ibro FM. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to hand over control to them while I step aside to the session. Thank you. Over to you, ladies.
Thank you, Yemi. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to yet again another book review. Yemi has already said the title of the book. It's quite an interesting book, you know. The thing that caught my eyes was Gen Z, because, you know, there's been so much chatter about Gen Z, you know. It's either the millennials or the Gen X, or, you know, baby boomers are complaining here and there about Gen Z. So this book did catch my interest. It did prove to be a very interesting book. But yeah, that's why Iwan and I are here to break it down, look at it from, you know, review it, and, you know, look at what Anthony was trying to tell us in this book. I was reading an article, was it today or yesterday? And it says, you can't ignore Gen Z. No matter how much you complain about them, they're here to stay. In 10 years from now, we're going to form 30% of the workforce. So we're going to have to figure out ways how to work with them, you know, understand them better and work with them, and even design the workplace so that they can stay, because they're talent and we need to keep that talent if we want our organizations to thrive. So yeah, without speaking too much, I'm going to hand over to Uwa, because Uwa is going to start this review. She will take the first 5 chapters. It was a very long book, 10 chapters. Uwa will take the first 5 chapters, and then I will come in with the remaining 5 chapters. And yeah, I mean, if there's time, we will make provision for people to make their comments. But then if there's no time, as we're talking, please feel free to put in your views, your comments in the chat box, because seeing that's a 10-chapter book, I don't know what, you know, how much time we're going to take to review this book. But anyway, over to you, Uwa. Last book review, Uwa did a fantastic job. So of course, I'm looking forward to another amazing breakdown from Uwa. So Uwa, over and out. Yeah, I think you need to unmute. Oh, wait, hold on. You can't? Hold on, hang on.
You can now. You can now.
Okay, you can now.
Okay. Okay, thank you. See, all this pressure that people like putting on me, please. Just oh God. But good evening, everyone. I hope we are having an amazing day. Why am I saying having an amazing day? I think the day is already over. We're here. Okay, I think I'll just share for you guys, you know, as I normally do. The dogcast now. Okay. Yeah, so this book it's very interesting. Like isn't it has said, Gen Z is an integral part of the workforce. So it's only fair to, I mean, dwell on them. I mean, you have to understand the basics, the intricacies of who they are and what they present, obviously. But thing is, I think we focus so much on Gen Z that we forget that Gen Alpha is still coming up. I think they are even almost at that place where we can call them. But yeah, so that's it. So I'll just jump into The New Age Contract by Anthony Onesto. Okay, so the age hoopla. Let's just delve into it. Now, one thing about this book is this book had a lot of data and a lot of repetition. I think that's my take on it. It had too much data and it didn't really focus on, well, for me, I felt like there was more, it was presenting data instead of actually solving the problem or making us understand some bits of it. It was just, it felt like information overload. That's how I would see it. But, as we progress, you understand why I said that, you know. But yeah. So the age hoopla, Gen Z, Gen Z, Gen Z, Gen Z, Gen Z. First of all, who is Gen Z? But before we get into who Gen Z are, let's understand what they are not or the other intricacies that follow it. Whatever generation you belong to, there is always a business trying to distract or blame you for their inefficiencies. And we discovered that in this book, they actually said that it has been a trend. Even if you don't even read the book, if you look through a lot of if you look through different publications, and you see, oh, Gen Z is doing this, millennials are doing this, boomers and this. Are boomers the reason for this and that? It's so weird, you know. Like there's always a reason to shift blame to a particular sect of people instead of actually focusing on solving the problems that are making the situation as bad as it should be. That's the major thing. So whatever generation you belong to, you boomer, Gen X, Gen Z, millennial, whatever you are, do not allow that distraction get to your head. Just know that one way or another, your environment has impacted why or how you are perceived and the way you've adapted to a lot of conditions that have been thrown at you. Because if we're being for real, you are not to blame for how a business runs. It's just policies, environment, and whatnot. That's how it is. And Gen Zs are not millennials on steroids or millennials, period. And that's one thing I noticed about this book because it kept shifting Gen Zs up to 1995. And I was so not with that because if I'm being honest, I think Gen Z should be starting from 2005, 2000, the year 2000, not even anything 1990. But let's just give them that. Yeah, they've already started there. But the real Gen, because the book says Gen Z starts from 1995 going down to 2012, but recent studies show that it starts from 1997, which I still think is steep because if we're being honest, it should start from the years lower. But I'm not the author here. I'm just here to review for you people. Yeah. Gen Z needs a more collaborative and less competitive atmosphere to thrive. Now, I'd read an article about Scrabble game. Apparently, Scrabble had adjusted most of their the outlook of what they have. Normal Scrabble, you just have your boards and you play your word games and everybody's competing to get there. And the new Scrabble now introduces a team um, kind of platform. So since they are realizing that Gen Z is focused on collaboration and teamwork, so they are now adapting their game to have that inside. So you see things like hints, Scrabble team. So instead of playing as one person, you're playing in a team. So their aim is to adapt to the less competitive nature that Gen Z has. Although I feel like if we're being honest, competition never stops. I think it just takes a different look, a different yeah, it's just dressed up now. You can say teamwork, but even in that team, I feel like people are still trying to outdo what they should be doing. I mean, you still have espionage going on and a lot of things. So you can't really say competition has died. Maybe less competitive, but the competition itself still exists. Yeah, just dressed up now. And then to be more successful with engaging Gen Z and the others coming after, you need to find a cohesive option for organizational and personal goals. In essence, embrace side of businesses in a smart way while encouraging entrepreneurship. Of course, if you don't know what entrepreneurship, let me define that for you, or let me just explain that. So entrepreneurship, you are still working in a company, and within the company, you are finding ways to improve what already exists. You would not have Google News or Google AdSense without intrapreneurship. You wouldn't have those. And that's why I put there Google 20% time. So Google had this they had this notion when they went public, and that was for them to say, okay, you know what, you get 20% time, like a week off or 2 weeks off, to go and figure out how you can improve the business. That's what Google 20% time is. And this happened when they were going public. So this was their aim to motivate their employees to, have a very flexible and innovative work environment. And because of that, Google AdSense and Google News was born, and probably other Google products are still there. And I don't know how many companies are adopting that now, but I feel like it's a very good thing because you can, at that point, own a piece of the business. That's what entrepreneurship does. So you own a piece of the business by, bringing something that is intelligent, that is useful, that also adds to the very growth of the business. It become an intricate and important part of the business. So it makes sense. Of course, Google will still own it, that's for sure, but at least you get percentage of it. And you already know culture eats strategy for breakfast. So this book reiterates that point. So in the foreword, when you read through, there were some things that were pointed out there. So the person that wrote the foreword talked about how she had high performing employees who actually that wanted to leave at some point, and she was wondering why, because they had done very well in their last performances, like previous years. In fact, the year that one of our employees wanted to leave, she had exceeded a marketing, like call it a budget, no, like the target she had set for herself. And she was wondering why. And then the person told her that she didn't feel welcome, she didn't feel comfortable, she didn't feel like she belonged to that. She felt like a lot of her needs were met. And that opened her eyes to see, okay, that means there's something that is missing here. It could be culture, it could be whatnot. So it led to more research for her to improve the business. So in essence, this is just, the hula baloo of the whatever age group you find yourself, you're affected by something. But at the same time, adaptation is very, very important, very necessary. Okay, so intro to Gen Z. Gen Z is a very unique and interesting generation, but this can be said for all generations. So, there's that. I mean, Gen Z, you are so interesting. There's a lot of audacity with Gen Z. I'm sure when you think about them, it makes you laugh. Other times it annoys you. I know one of my friends, he's always complaining of the Gen Z and how they're giving her, they're choking her. They're a very interesting set of human beings, but you can't blame them because right now, a lot of things have happened that have pushed them to get to this level, first of all, because they have seen that they would have to step up. In fact, we have pushed them to the point where they have to step up for themselves, because it feels like in the workplace, there really is nobody standing up for them. In fact, they are the monsters that we made, if we want to be honest. They are the monsters we made. And that's why they can make ridiculous demands, although those demands make sense to them, but sound ridiculous to you because you don't understand it. By the end of the day, they are very, very interesting. And they grew up with technology, so not many of them know what it feels like to be offline per se. Yeah, because the Gen Z, I don't think they came in when technology was already, like digital technology was taking um taking a force, like dominating the market. So they came in when everything was pretty much set. So they didn't really have to deal with the hassle of uh having to know, okay, you can stay without having a Facebook account, a Twitter account, now X, or WhatsApp. They didn't have to stay without that. They didn't have to be offline where children played. I know people have been worrying about how they're going to, because they've seen how children of nowadays can easily use any gadget, just right off the bat. A 2-year-old, you find her already operating the phone so well. And you're wondering how does she even know how to do that? It's very worrisome. But they they just, once they were able to grow up, they adapted to that world quickly. So they don't know what it is to carry water on your head and trek to a certain point to fetch water because you don't have water at home. That's them for you. They don't have that experience. I'm sorry. To them, what are you talking about? No, you're not making any sense to them. So the realities you face, they didn't face it. They just came to meet everything set for them. But at the same time, while also having to step up. Yeah. For the Gen Z, most especially those in the US, the iPhone is like a unique identifier or a must-have as it basically runs their lives. Most don't know their numbers by heart. Most of them were already plunged into that state. Although I think this book kind of juxtaposes millennials and Gen Zs. That's why I said Gen Z should start from the year 2000, because most of these things describe millennials, but let's just focus on it being Gen Z. Yeah. So most of them must have iPhones. In fact, their whole lives focus on their phones. And one thing about this book is it focuses on the American version of what Gen Z is. So a lot of us probably might not relate to a lot of these things. I'm sure some Gen Zs are here and they're wondering what we're talking about. Like they can't relate to some of them. Maybe the growing ones can relate, but yeah. Gen Zs are very senior. Oh God. So can you just indicate if you are still with me? Because I don't want to feel like I'm talking to myself. So are we still here? Is everybody still listening?
Yes, we the
Okay.
Gen Zs are here.
Oh my
My
God.
God, Abby. Oh my God.
Why are you going? Okay,
Yes,
no
for the purpose
problem.
of this review, we are all Gen Z.
Okay, no problem. That's fine. That's fine. Everybody's Gen Z. I throw my hands up in surrender. That's good. Okay, so let's just go back to what we're talking about. So now the dichotomy between Gen Zs and millennials, we have the flip phone versus the iPhone era. So we had the flip phones, although I know some of you probably had iPhones. But let's go back to reality. Flip phones. So the boomers, Gen X's had flip phones, and millennials had flip phones, and now Gen Z's had the smartphone. So from iPhones running down. Oh yeah, Millennium Pro Max. Okay, okay, that's great. Adebola said we're all, of course, I agree. That's what we're saying here. Obviously, I agree. Yeah, so at the end of the day, we're all forced to adapt to this idea that we are right now is either digital tech or nothing. So we that's why the flip phone versus the iPhone era, because well, we're just forced to adapt. With Gen Zs, they came prepared. It's like they came with a manual, but we were forced to adapt. But at the end of the day, the needs over time haven't changed. If we're being honest, we're just being exposed to more needs that were never anticipated, by our founding fathers per se. I mean, basic human needs are food, shelter, clothing, and acceptance. But that has now moved to include more things. So the tech boom, identity politics, and the likes. Now people are focused on what people would say about them. They hold it to their hearts, like it's so important. And then the tech boom, the focus on work defining who you are has become is now on steroids. It's so bad, you know. And then identity politics. Now people want to be in communities. That's why we have so many communities now. The tech community, the LGBTQ plus, the everything. Like people, the gamers. Like there are so many communities right now. People want to be accepted. So their focus is what community can I identify with? So that is another need that was never actually anticipated, but really important. So in summary, embrace and understand Gen Z and their way of thinking, and you can effectively work with them. So their emergence. Now, this book, like I said previously, it has an Americanized experience. So most of the data, you probably might not relate with them. They feel like important data, but you're just like, you might be hitting a brick wall when you look at them. Yeah, so but in essence, it consisted of the Great Recession affecting boomer and Gen X jobs. Yeah, so and they were replaced by robots. Obviously, we cannot relate to this. We don't have robots replacing us just yet. So that's why I said it's really Americanized, and you might just be punching the air trying to understand most of it. But at the same time, you can also understand the emergence of terrorism, you know. So there was a lot of terrorist acts during that period. So all these things combined to affect the economic outlook and environment of that period. And then that is when people started the we are a family, not a team kind of work environment. So that also contributed to the instability that was there. So we are a family, so they expected you to work till you couldn't work anymore. You understand? So you're working, and then when you reach retirement age, they still take care of you when you retired. So you have that pension. But now we're a team. So nobody is caring about pensions and all those things. Their own is we're a team. So the push is now to that's getting to where we are. So the push is now towards we're a team. They're finding ways to move work from the company to other things to save money or all those things. Yeah. But that period, this is what was this thing. Now, for the Nigerian context, we had a somewhat stable economy. I won't even call it really stable, but let's just say things were not as bad as they were now. And another thing is there was an influx of new jobs. So there were new jobs, and the labor ratio at that time matched the job ratio. You get, but the thing is, there were no long-term plans put in place to ensure that these things were sustained. People talk about sustainability a lot. If you don't put the plans in place now, next 10 years, what happens? Of course, now we know a lot of companies have left Nigeria. our climb is just not good for business. So people are running away. And what has that cost? We now have increased imports, we have more labor, less jobs. You understand? So all these things were coming together. Digital technology was now coming into play. The internet was becoming a thing. Social media was becoming a thing. And a lot of things were being pushed. In the next this year, this will take over. Your jobs will be gone by then, you know. So all these things were being touted at that point. And the thing is, once you don't take care of all these problems, you definitely will contribute to birthing a different kind of population, which is what we have now. Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and the other gens that will come going forward, you know. And the reality is a lot of things were also happening then. Now, we can say that while these things were affecting their jobs, millennials were growing up and they were the first people to experience the very heat of the economic downturn. Yeah, so that's for the Nigerian climb. That's how I say it. For the Gen Z in the American climb, they were the first to experience it, but millennials experienced ours for the Nigerian climb. So economic stability is what most millennials and Gen Zs grew up on. And because of that, suicide rates, depression, anxiety rates were increased. So it led to the constant need for mental health services. Oh, my mental health is suffering, this and that, you know. You hear all these things and they seem funny, but the truth is, you don't take care of here and your internals, it will definitely affect your productivity and the way you work, obviously. So, you know, that's it. Yeah. So we earn more but buy less. So ironic. You know, very, very ironic. So in summary, every generation definitely took a hit, regardless of how we see each generation. If you think the last generation had it better, you come to this generation and say, okay, they still had their problems. So every generation was almost always taking a hit. Yeah. So now that we have like kind of an understanding of Gen Z and the things that led to their emergence, what do you think Gen Z really want? What do you think they want? Before I even get into my, what do you think Gen Z want? Like in just off the bat, what do you think they want? Let me see your comment in the chat box. What do you think Gen Z wants in the workplace? So let me see. Soft life. Happy. So you know what soft life? I thought we are all Gen Z there. Thought we are all wanting soft life too. Oh, you don't want soft life? Okay. So soft life, flexibility, okay. Yes, peace, structure, purpose, that's true. Okay. Freedom, remote work. Yes, yes, yes. They want to be heard, of course, of course. These are very, very important, very, very less job, higher pay. Oluwatosin, you are very, very right. You're very right, because yes, they definitely need less pay. Validation, yeah, instant gratification. I think instant gratification has been there for everyone. It's just very amplified now with Gen Z, but instant gratification has always been there. Look at the Nigerian economics fair. You can see that over time now, it's just we don't think long term. We don't think 10, 20 years ahead. We just think of what we can get now. And that's why we are where we are. Uni said a growth vision. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Anita, freedom, unaccountability. Why do I feel like you're one of the people affected by the Gen Zs? Freedom, unaccountability, less of monitoring, instant gratification. Well, okay. I like that unaccountability part because yes, they want more control. So yes, that makes sense. Uh they said, don't force me to come to the office. I can do that stuff. I guess you. Kudira said no pressure. Yes, but and these are very important things. Don't you think so? Do you do you like a lot of pressure? Sometimes pressure should have you can't have pressure every time. You can't have pressure every time. So I get you, no pressure. Yes, they need to have at least a slice of pressure. And now they don't even want it. They want everything to go smoothly. But I mean, there always has to be a storm before the calm. So I get you. Okay. Yes. So yes, all of you have made very, very important points, and that's true. Yes. Stop using Gen Z, reward accordingly. This sounds like a Gen Z. Okay, we're all Gen Z here, so but this sounds like an anger Gen Z. Say stop using Gen Z, reward accordingly. She got there. Don't be angry, okay? Don't be angry. But yes, you guys have all made very, very important points, and all of you are very, very correct because they are making they have this because of what they've grown in. You can't blame them. They've grown in the era of um very bad pay, work environments are very toxic and terrible. So you can't blame them when they decide, okay, you know what, I have to stand up and ask for something. So you can't really blame them. Now, do they go overboard? Of course they do. So that is, yeah, that explains a lot. But yes, some of their needs are important. Some of them are, you know, unrealistic. Yes, but in essence, they have they make some salient points. Yeah. Okay, so some situations, okay, I've already talked about the situations that have influenced why Gen Z play out the way they play out. And the thing about Gen Z is if they allow, because now they're on the extreme end of a spectrum. Let's say we have a spectrum and they're on the extreme end of wanting their needs. And then the Gen Z, the Gen Alpha, sorry, the boomers, Gen X's, and millennials are on the other extreme. Their extremes work this way. The online life is now affecting the way they, interact with the world. You know, before we used to appreciate going out, playing with your friends, meeting up, you know, all those things. But now we don't have that any longer. You get all we have now is people wanting to stay at home more. And that is influenced again by economic realities. Can't blame that. But there's some of them that just so because of those things, most of them want to be home. Remote work has become necessary instead of like an adaptation. It's not become necessary. And then with 2020, with how 2020 played out, it helps to just cement that for them. Like, yes, why do I have to be in the office every time when I can be at home? So that online life has affected a lot of the things that they experience. And now they are leaning towards more online reclusive life. And that doesn't help anyone because the truth is having human interactions is very, very important, very necessary. It's very necessary because with people, you can talk and share and bounce ideas. Yes, some of them might be stolen, but at the same time, you can talk and relate well with them. Now, if you're just always at home and you're thinking, nah, I don't want to go anywhere, what happens is you have become a shell of yourself. And of course, you can now understand why you are very depressed because you're not relating with people. You're just focused on being indoors, staying home, you know, pressing yourself down. You just want everything. You want to be a king without actually doing what kings do. You know, you don't want to serve, you want to be served. And is buried in a bubble kind of thing. No offense to the Gen Zs that will attack me later. But these things are, I understand that, yes, a lot of things are influencing your decisions and your actions, but you can't always allow them control everything that you do. And now, still talking about what they want. So because of these things, if they decide to be who they are, they now shift to the extreme end of the spectrum, which takes them to augmented reality. So now they have those glasses and they stay there and imagine what they want or look through those things, and they are buried in that bubble. When real life is here, when you can experience real life. And self-driven cars, I mean, now all you have to do is tell a car to do something. This seems like they are, you know, improvements or innovation, but are they really innovative ideas, or they're just taking away? It feels like you are delegating your life, delegating your thinking, delegating yourself to a machine. I don't know if you see it that way. So all these things come together and, you know, influence who or the makeup of what Gen Zs are. And they have a lot of problems they are facing, like the automation threat. So we've been hearing that automation is going to take over a lot of things that we'll do. Robots will come and take your jobs. Robots are taking everything. Really? Okay. So now there are three automation threats that the book mentioned. There's automation by offshoring and outsourcing. Companies are getting cheaper. So what do? They take all the jobs from employees and outsource them to countries where they will pay less and get all the jobs done. Earning dollars, earning dollars. But you're being paid less than your counterparts in that same job. You understand? And then these people that are even outsourcing you to these people are getting a large chunk and are not treating you so well. So it's already a problem. So they are removing themselves from any accountability, any care, any lawsuits. They are protected. Makes no sense. Then automation by robotics. So robots will now do the jobs. Robots will become the policemen. Robots will be the ones serving you tea. You know, you don't have to cook. A robot will do your work for you. You know, these things. What a life. We have so some of the movies that you watch are becoming reality. Just so amazing. And then automation by software. So a lot of things that you would normally do by yourself, you now have to learn a lot of software. Now, the thing about these things is obviously you can learn them, but it's gonna take a while for them to enter the space, because I mean, think about it. If a robot was here making presentations to you, explaining the book to you, would you be as I don't think you'd be as focused or as interested as when a human being who you can ask a question and the person will think, okay, this is an answer. And you can ask that question and reframe it 10, 20 times, and they'll give you 10, 20 answers that are way different than if you were talking to a robot. Okay, think about a time when you called a company customer service and it was the robot responding. Did you like the response? Of course, you didn't like it. You felt like you were hitting a brick wall because they will not understand as well as a human being. Not possible. It's not possible. And the reality is, these people will still need to come back because these machines, exactly, these machines are not going to manage themselves. They can't manage themselves. I don't know if you heard that story of a robot that worked for 22 hours and fainted. You saw that, right? 22 hours, I fainted. So it's a lot. It's going to take a while for them to adopt. Obviously, there are going to be improvements every time, every day, but reality is a slow journey. It's going to take a while. but it can never be the same experience. But I think that's these corporations, they understand this. That's why they're adapting everything every day, training all this AI to learn more human interaction. And then movies are reiterating all these things so that your mind gets ready for it. Your mind accepts it. So that when it happens, it just happens. And you're just like, okay, yeah, this has happened. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is just observation. So that people will not think, oh, she's Gaga and Google. Nah, just being realistic. But yeah. And also environmental factors like asthma causing weathers. Now, the book talked about these weathers that they have, that the climate change and how bad it is for them there. Now, because of these weathers, these people have to stay home. That means they can't go to school. And what happens? No literacy. And they are back to where they were. A lot of things are combining to affect and produce the kind of people that we want, that we are saying, oh, we don't like or we can't understand. Gen Z, Gen Alpha. Okay, yes, okay, I'll do that. So you get, so all these things are coming together. So yeah, but two things that are really at the core of what Gen Zs want: work-life balance is very important. Although I don't know how possible that is for work and life to balance. Of course, it's possible, but how to achieve it, we can always learn. And then job security, we might say, yes, we know that Gen Zs are, loyalty is just a word and it's not, what will you call it? It's just a word and not, it's not important to them. So they are saying, but job security is important. If they can find a job that will pay them well and also attend to their emotional and physical safety, trust me, you have a a Gen Z that is comfortable and ready to work for as long as, yeah. So 20th and 21st century jobs. Now, this dichotomy was brought up because it was it was for us to understand the difference or the development of how jobs went from before the 20th century, all the centuries, and then the 21st century, which are the jobs that are shaping what we have now, which is Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and the likes. Of course, your 20th century jobs were very repetitive. They required no creativity, although you maintained your dignity. Although I don't know how you maintain your dignity when you have all the, you clock in and do as you are told and do what you are told and nothing else. So there's something in product management called gold plating. So you're not gold plating. That's doing beyond what is obtainable or what you're asked to do. But in a 20th century job, you're just doing what you're told. You don't add or subtract. In essence, you're not, what we like to say is, innovative. Yeah. So workers are treated as disposable and viewed as data points. You just treat them anyhow. Of course, you've seen how factory workers are treated. You've seen how retail workers are treated. So, that's it. There's not much room for career growth. Think of your cab drivers, think of truck drivers, think of retail people. Think of them. There's not much room for career growth. You're not exactly doing anything to push your mind to a certain level. You're just stuck in a particular position. Yeah. So in all these things now, it's not going away anytime soon. I'd already said its demise may be slow, but you can't really do away with it at the end of the day. There's a lot of micromanaging. There's a rigid and anxiety-inducing performance reviews. Of course, the Freddie Taylor con that the book talked about, where everything was measured and timed. You get, so all these things are anxiety-inducing. So you're measuring the performance of your employees on how well they can keep to, how long hours they can work, not the quality of their work. So I, for one, I support performance reviews. I just feel there should be more things added. Like there should be more drivers, there should be more takers. You don't just focus on a few things. It should be the 360, like an improvement on the 360 way of performance reviews. There should be more inclusive elements to determine and review, okay, because I think companies now just work with trends. They don't pay attention to everything. We're just, if we're being realistic, the our modern work environment, in fact, the modern environment just works with we're just moving with a lot of trends. You're just reviewing based on what you want to review. There's not a lot of focus on quality. Although some companies are adapting that and focusing on the quality of your work instead of how many hours you're working. So yeah. And you work in the office and nowhere else. So there's no flexibility. That's it for 20th century jobs. So for 21st century jobs, there's less need for long hours of work, flexible work hours. Performance assessment has an inclusion of patience and tolerance. There's a merging of personal and company goals. We talked about Google 20%. So they find ways to allow you to think while also achieving their own goal, which is you bringing your ideas and they also bring their ideas too. There's room for improvement and career growth. So you can see where you'll be in the next 5 years if you take a particular career path. Money is a means and not a motivator and an end. Some companies think once they pay you large amounts of money, that's it. And then other things are suffering and they wonder why you're leaving in the next 5 seconds. Immediately you came in because all you did was give money. You didn't focus on the other things that are important. Um, bereavement, medicals, your mental health, a lot of things need to be included. Less toxic workplace environment and culture, no micromanaging, more creative control, flexible work environment, tax-based job models. So quality over quantity. How well, not how long. So it mustn't be a 9 to 5. If you can finish your work in by 3 o'clock, you go home. You know, that's it. That's the 21st century job. People first, not the organization. So these 21st century jobs are focused on people. How can they improve the people around them so that when they leave, they are better off than when they came in? It sounds hilarious, but that's the reality we have now. And these are what Gen Zs are requiring. And this is what they feel will work best for them. That's probably why they're annoying a lot of boomers and millennials and Gen X's. But the thing is that if you do not adapt and have these things imputed, then you end up being at a loss because you are doing the same thing and expecting different results. And what do we call that? Insanity. So in summary, the market or environment is always subject to change because you can't also say that doing this would ensure your organization will get to the best level. But at the same time, it helps to change what you think is bad about what already exists in your organization. So with this, I'll just come to the end. Like I said earlier when I started, I would just like to read a book from a Nigerian author because I feel like most of these things focused on the American version of what a Gen Z is. So it didn't really, I felt like I was hitting a lot of roadblocks. Most of the data was just American based. So I would like to read something from a Nigerian author who can capture the Nigerian version of a Gen Z and how we can adapt to the Nigerian version of a Gen Z. In essence, so that's it. So thank you so much. That's it. So I would like to give to uh my co-presenter Z to take the floor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was great. Thanks for your review. I was taking notes, as you were talking. I hear you on the part of it not touching on, it was very Americanized. However, there
Yeah.
are some some commonalities. Yes, there were points where he was talking about climate, and I was like, climate, Nigerians, how climates
Yes.
literate are we?
Yes, exactly.
But there's still some things that, are commonalities with us. Yes, maybe the Gen Z, the American Gen Z is not so much as the Nigerian Gen Z, but there are some common ground. And I liked your, where you asked everyone what they thought Gen Z wants. And my question to you guys is that the things you said that Gen Z want, don't you want them? Don't you want soft life? Yeah, I want soft life. In fact, by heart, I think I'm a Gen Z. Anyway, I live in a house that is full of 4 generations. So I can claim Gen X, Millennial, Gen Z, Gen Alpha.
So you're lucky. You're very lucky.
No, go ahead. Yeah, I mean, I have them. So they're schooling me and I'm schooling them. We're all learning from each other. But the thing about it is that, yes, I do know that, sometimes Gen Z can take things a lot further. But I think I remember reading in a book, somebody said, come, let's think about it. Some of these things Gen Z people are doing is the things that you want to do, but you just never had the, in quote, balls to do it. Excuse my French. That's why some people are angry. It's because you've always wanted to do it, but these people have the audacity to do it. Yeah?
That's the word, audacity.
The truth of the matter is that the cycle never ends. You see, the way people are, millennials are complaining about Gen Z, that's the same way Gen X was complaining about millennials. We were born in their flesh. And we've come to see. Yes, premium version of audacity. But you know what? Get ready, wait for Gen Alpha. If you
oh my God.
Oh my God. This one is audacity raised to power million. I have Gen Alpha in my house, so I know what we're talking about.
Premium plus plus.
Yeah. Anthony said something and I resonated with what he said. He said, see, these people were born into chaos. Yes, you said that the millennials were born, but the truth of the matter is that millennials had some form of comforts, right? Yes, so we're learning beside the Alpha, we're not ready. The millennials still saw some part of comfort. These people were they were born into a world full of gunfire, shooting and everything. So they were born into chaos. So you can't blame them for wanting to have some part of their life have control. Yeah. I mean, you can't blame them. Yes, they may do it in a funny way, but that's why we're there to guide them. But anyway, let's go to the remaining part of the book. I like when I started reading this book, I was like, I want this guy to be my friend. But over time, as I was reading, I was like, there's something to say. I'm like, but I still resonated with a lot of things he said, and there were some things he said that were repeated, and I could tell that he was saying things out of passion. Now this chapter he talked about bodies in seats, and he was saying that we're slowly going to automation, not slowly, where as the world is turning into automation, we need to have a workplace. We need to handle this transition better so that, the workplace is viable for Gen Z to thrive. And he said something, and he kept repeating it throughout the chapters. There needs to be a lot of unlearning. There's so much learning that we have that is obsolete that we need to unlearn to, to understand or align with what Gen Z, wants. And then, so he gave examples of, organizations. I think we might have read about these organizations. We read about Amazon, we read about Uber, we read about Walmart, where they talked about how they exploit, their workers. All they do is they just use the workers. They don't care about your welfare. Their own is just, okay, clock in, clock out. You're here to do your job and get out. And he said that's not the kind of job, or that's not the kind of workplace that a Gen Z is looking for. And the bodies in seats he was referring to, he was saying it refers to automation where companies justify using their employees. So they just see you as a cog in the wheel. You're just a part of the machine. When they're done with you. And the truth of the matter is that, we're talking about America. It happens here. Some people just go to, remember when we did the review of the book, Dying Daily? Some people go to work and they go to work as zombies. Some of us, even inside this room, you wake up in the morning, you go to work like zombie, you come back. And the truth of the matter, and it's a sad thing, the truth of the matter, you go to work, you're not, your creativity is not being enhanced. You're just, you just have a manual, do this. Yes, sir. Yes. no, sir. And then at the end of the day, if they decide that they are cutting down, downsizing, your name is there. Thank you. Bye-bye. And that's what he's saying. He's saying that Gen Z, they don't want that. I remember somebody answered here and talked about purpose. And, you know, I was like, Gen Z wants a job. The Gen Z talent wants a job where they come and there's some purpose to it. That they don't want a job that they're going to come to and there's nothing, you know, that rings true to their hearts. That is why, you know, we need to take note of these things because the future of work is to design this kind of workplace. Us as HR, it's the onus lies on us.
Yes, exactly.
Now, on the other hand, he gave an example of these other companies. He talked about this company called Southwest Airlines, where there was a balance, right? You know, they were concerned about the welfare of their people, you know, and he also talked about them, you know, I think, you know, just right in, because this book was written at the cusp of the pandemic and there were lots of layoffs going on. He said, oh, they didn't do any layoffs. You know, they knew how to manage things well. They treated their employees as customers. And of course, that led to great cost savings for the airline, because when you treat your people well, there's a higher chance of productivity, right? Then there was something he kept on talking about, which amused me, Taylorism. He talked about this person called Taylor, this principal.
Frederick Taylor.
He
called him a con
He called him a con artist. He said this principle is that underlying principle in management school. So all of us that have gone to do MBA, he's saying that the MBA is scam. Because in your management school, they are telling you, they are teaching you, they've initiated you into the Taylorism cult. So as we go further, you know what the Taylorism cult is. He says, and those conversations don't have any hint of humanism in them. They don't care about you as a human.
They were very scientific. That's the problem.
Yeah, he was very scientific.
He
said you're just a number. You know, they don't really care about you as a being. Like you're sick, whatever. You know, what are you churning out? So he talks about that company and Patagonia and other companies like them. He said, you know, in those companies, the employee has a stake in them. They know what they do and why they do it. And he said this Taylorism that he hates so much, you could detect his hate in the book. He said this Taylorism, this Taylorism led to the creation of the dreaded middle manager. Now, in that one, I was like, well, the middle manager, yes, well, but it's not that they're so bad. So if you're a middle manager, please, not
they
that
were necessary. That's just
useless, but then you need to unlearn certain things. He said the middle manager is focused on spreadsheets and time monitoring. They are checking you. When did you come into work? You know, you have to report to the manager. He said that's what they used to determine the efficiency and productivity of the employee. You know, and he's saying that, you know, so I heard you when you talked about performance review, and you said, you know what, so what he's saying is that it's not about the performance review, but he's saying that the performance reviews that happen, they have no nuance, they have no context. All they are concerned about is what is your productivity, how much revenue did you generate for the company? That's what they touch on. And he's saying we need to step away from that because that's Gen Z is not interested in that kind of thing.
Because if someone sits in front of you and they are so anxious, like, am I going to get fired?
Because I didn't contribute to the bottom line, and because the numbers are saying it, then I'm going to be shocked. That Gen Z doesn't want that. So he's saying that scientific management has taken empathy out of leadership. And then he says that because this Taylorism, there is an obsession with numbers, it breeds cobras. What do cobras do? They are ready to you know, bite you, and you know. So he's saying that he also talked about tech companies. He said tech companies are fertile ground for cobras. So, you know, companies that emphasize so much on numbers and they're not about the human being or the welfare of the person, he said they are breeding ground for cobras. So he's saying that measuring importance or metrics is not, he's not saying that it's not important, but he's saying the right metrics need to be measured, and then the dead snakes need to be filtered out. So the question is, what are the best metrics and what are the ways to use them? So I think that he did give some salient, he did give some important points as to how to help us to design the workplace for the Gen Z person. So he says the issue he has with metrics is that it is an issue when it is just the only or the biggest determinant in reward and recognition. So, you brought in money for us, you're going to get rewarded. And I remember when I used to work in the bank in my early career, we used to have beef for the marketers. because they're like, well, you are the ones bringing in the money. You say you're the one bringing the money, you're going to get the biggest reward. And, you know, they'll be walking around with plenty of high shoulders. So like, okay, so what's our own job? We are our own is
to observe.
And customers there. So we're not useful in the chain. But then there's something we're doing. We're still useful in the value chain. You know, so if you have people that are dissatisfied like that, of course, there's demotivation, there's lower productivity. So that's what he's saying, that you can't just base your reward and recognition on numbers, because people want to be recognized for their contributions. And you need to know that sometimes those contributions come out, they can't be measured by the standardized metrics that you have for your performance review, right?
Yeah.
And he's saying people are not machines, and so they shouldn't be treated like that. So it's important for you to take into consideration a multidimensional view when you're doing your performance review. So it's not just about, how much did you contribute to the bottom line? There are other things that you need to take into consideration. And then he said he has a problem with this sentence. If you can't measure it, you can't fix it. He's saying that means you're saying that if you cannot report on what your employees are doing, that means they're not doing anything. And that's not true. Some people are doing
unrealistic.
Yeah, it's unrealistic. You're right. So some people are doing stuff, but you just need to find ways to track what it is that they're doing. So if you want to build a culture where employees are empowered to seek their own answers and be creative in problem solving, then they'll be more engaged. Yeah, because they know that, okay, it's not just based on these standardized metrics, I'm going to be rewarded. That's it. So he talked about somebody called Elma Winter and said that person was a pioneer of temporary employment. He says then she's in the same WhatsApp group with Taylorism, and says
all the corners is coming out.
This person said that employees have no right to job security. And I know there's been debate around that is there really job security? Is it a myth or not? But what he's saying is that Gen Z, I think somebody even answered it in the chat when you asked that question. Gen Z is looking for job security. If they know that their job, I mean, when we say job security, it's relative, right? We're not saying that Gen Z expects to work with you for 100 years and get a long-term achievement award. That's not what we're saying, but they need to feel safe. They need to feel that you care for them. When you're talking to a Gen Z and you're making a job offer to the person is asking you about the package. It's like, okay, what do you have? What do you have? My development, are you going to take care of me? They're thinking about other things beyond just the money. I mean, the money is great, but there's a whole lot more. There are a lot more questions that they ask other than just, money.
Money, yes.
What's your working arrangement like? Is it hybrid? Is it remote? They want to know all these things. They want to know how well you care for the human, the human being.
Element,
Exactly. So he's saying, how do you think a Gen Z would feel working for a place that thinks that there's no job security? And he's so pained. He's like, how do we effectively reverse decades of business school brainwashing? Because he says, all y'all, for want of a better word, that went to business school, you've been brainwashed.
But it was just a way for us to think. Why is he talking about God?
I mean, I see his points. I kind of agree with him. I see his points. We need to move past that. So that's why there needs to be a lot of unlearning. There needs to be a shift in management thinking. So if Gen Z sees, that there's not an inkling of job security, they're not going to want to work in your place. And then see, as much as we say, there's still a war for talent. People, I see when guys are complaining now, they can't find. So when you now have the Gen Z people that are equipped with the skills and all of you are gunning for the same talent, then you now know that you need to design your workplace, in such a way that is attractive. Your EVP has to be attractive enough to, get them. Now, he says there are a number of trends that he thinks that Gen Z would like to see effected in the workplace. Remember that he wrote this book at the beginning when the pandemic had just started. And he was saying that he advocates that open offices do not return after the pandemic. Well, story to him. I mean, maybe we need to interview him and talk to him now and say, hey, guy, because with the RTO, return to office, that, lots of organizations are clamoring for. I don't know that, that open office is completely eradicated, but I see the concerns, because there's also been conversation around that. People don't want to go and work in an open office when they know that, especially when the horror that people went through with COVID. I don't want to be breathing 50 other people's air. you know,
Ah.
I would rather like want to be
Stay
in a
at
smaller
home.
office. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll stay at home, you know, and he's saying that even if they're going to be offices, yeah, he's not going to be unrealistic and say there should be no offices. He's saying there should be smaller offices, you know, that
Yeah.
there is collaboration within smaller groups. And honestly, when he said this, it hits me because in my years of experience, I've had experience working from home, I've had experience working in an open office, I've had experience working in my own office, and I've also had an experience in this example that he cited, in an office where it was 3 of us. And I think that of my working experience, you know, apart from, you know, this was one of my best working experiences because I was with people that we could brainstorm stuff, you know, off the top. There was no, we would, you know, sometimes you're just in the middle of work and you just turn to somebody and say, hey, what do you think? And you're thinking and you're talking, you know, that you're brainstorming and going over stuff. There's so much collaboration. Yeah, as Lisa says, people also feel monitored in open offices and Gen Z, well, they won't have time to press their phone. Well, aside, but he's saying that, you know, Gen Z they feel like they would thrive better in those smaller offices. So you're in that, like I'm giving the example, in that smaller office, the fluff is cut away. Because I remember when I used to be in a big open office, sometimes I have to listen to my music to drown out the noise because there's so much noise and you're trying to, you know, get to the work that you want to do. Or you want to brainstorm, you need to step out of the office and go and do that. But in that small office, there were so many ideas that we're running through. We're just talking through things. If someone had an issue, was dealing with something at, you know, at work, you know, in their own task, we'll sit down and talk about it and trash it. So that's what he's saying, because he says that environment creates an environment for deep thinking. And I totally agree because I've been there.
True.
And he's saying it can be likened to a library. You know, like when you go to the library, you know, everything is so
it's quiet. You can think.
You can think and you can do some critical thinking. I totally agree. He also said something about another trend he said we should pay attention to is, Franca says currently experiencing this brainstorming part. Fantastic. So you can see that, you know, this thing he's saying is not far reaching. It's something that is practical.
Yeah.
And then he also talked about frequent change of jobs within the company. So I always say that a JD, because you know that when you get a JD, when you start a job, you're doing a whole lot more. In fact, sometimes you do something different from the JD that presented to you when you got to work. I remember I've worked in places where we sit down after 2 years, I'm like, wait, this job that you were hired for, check the JD. Are you doing the same thing? And then that's when we now started talking about, we also need to review JDs, because I don't see JDs as static documents. They're supposed to be dynamic to an extent. So he's saying that, remember that we don't just hire a set of skills, we hire people. And to get the most creative out of people, it's best to keep them in a space where these needs thrive, which is why I agree with him. I am pro-rotation. I am pro-job rotation. And
I agree, too. I agree.
You can't have somebody in one space for 3 years and the person do the same old same thing. No, it's an injustice to the person. You know, you need to release the person into other roles, just to, you know, have fresh, because that freshness, there's freshness of ideas that the person is bringing, and then the person is also getting to a place where the person is going to see new knowledge or receive new knowledge. So I'm an advocate for that, and that's what he's saying. He says rotation keeps the fun going. He said we are going towards a world that needs more generalization than specialists. He's not, I mean, you can specialize, but then it's good to have a generalist knowledge of this. And he said the Gen Z is actually like this. They'd rather be generalists than specialists. He said specialists or experts, they're needed, though. He's not saying they're not needed. But yes, exactly, Franca, it's very paramount for our career growth. I mean, I've worked in places where people that were rotated, their career growth was, so compared to those ones that were not rotated, their career growth was like, you're like, wow.
Because it doesn't even make sense to stay in one place. Like, how do you...
It doesn't. But then you will hear things like, business needs, you know, they are stifled by business needs. But these are conversations we have over and over again. I say, well, look, as much as we can, it just helps to build. You're correct, Ayomide. Especially like trainees. When you have trainees, you bring them into the system, you rotate them around. You find that those ones there, the chances of them getting to the top is much higher than those people that you have staying in one role for 4 years.
True.
So anyway, he says that he's not knocking the specialists out of the park, But he's
Yeah.
saying that even if you're a specialist, you have to be open to learning. You have to keep learning. You have to keep evolving. You can't say,
Yeah.
I'm the principality of this knowledge and that's it. No, your knowledge is dynamic. You need to keep learning because the world is just going boom, 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 boom. I mean, today
Yeah.
we saw chats. We saw GPT 4.0.
Oh,
Look at what's
God.
happening. Things are happening. Like everything just happening. Like so. You can't be at one,
Things are
not
moving.
in these times. You can't, you
Yeah.
have to keep moving. Said all employees need to be in a continuous state of learning and growth so you don't stay complacent. And he says, yes, even though he focuses in this book on Gen Z, he's saying that everybody should be hired regardless of age. There shouldn't be ageism, right? He says that, same way we're advocating for Gen Z, we should also advocate for millennials and Gen X, because the truth of the matter is that the way we treat the Gen X and the millennials, the Gen Z is watching, because they're going to get to that point where the young strapping Gen Alpha is going to come. So they also want to know how you're going to treat them when they come in. So you have to be careful of how you handle them. So he said, well, this rotation thing is not foolproof, but it does provide a flexible environment for the Gen Z to work in. Then, why you gave that example about Google, 20%, he's saying that he gave the examples of Google and Atlassian, because those people that were given that 20% of their work, it made them even create products that, are being used in the world now. Sometimes they do those things to make them think and create products that, come out to even function well on their own. So he's saying he's advocating for Gen Z employees to be given 20% of their work, of their work day, to be devoted to their own personal passion, because it does encourage creativity to thrive. And because he says, I mean, I agree. Look, tell me the truth, all of you. 8 hours in a day that you go to work. Do you actually do 8 hours? You come to work. Some ladies, you go to the ladies to go and do your makeup. That makeup is like 30 minutes, right? 30 minutes to Ayomide, no comments. You do that one and in the bathroom, you're just
I'm glad I'm glad people can be honest with themselves.
Thank you. Then you now come back to your desk. Then you will now use another maybe 1 hour to answer email. Though.
You got gist. You got gist with your friends.
See, to be honest, maybe let me be very generous. Maybe 4 hours that used to do work, because as somebody is passing, bring that meat pie. Just hey, how far? Do you know what that?
Exactly.
Before you know it, your 8 hours is gone, and then you carry your bag, and you're not carrying your bag at the 8 hours. You're carrying. I remember those days at work.
Before 8 hours.
10 minutes though. You see that?
I see the women are laughing.
Come here. I said, come here. Is this your clothes? Exactly. You've left the chat group because So Anthony is saying that you better feel attacked. Anthony is saying that let's be truthful with ourselves. This 8 hours we have for work is fluff. The truth of the matter is that if you devote like 2 hours or 3 hours to deep dive, deep focused work, you can accomplish what you need to accomplish. And that's what he's saying. He's saying that he's advocating for organizations to do shortened work weeks. In fact, there are some organizations already that do that. They do a 4-day work week, not in Nigeria.
Some are doing 3 days, sir. Some are doing 3 days.
Vicky says, HR, you spent almost 1 hour in the lobby of the CEOs getting to meet with you. So you can see. So, because, and the truth of the matter is that it's everywhere. That's really matter. Even abroad, you say, hey, how are you? How's the weather? That's how you're doing. How's the weather? I remember when I go for trainings in England, right? When we're doing, before you know it, we have tea break. I probably we have like 4 tea breaks. And that tea break, we're not working, we're gisting. So the guy is like, why are we deceiving ourselves? This work week that we're talking about is a lot of fluff, so we can shorten it, and then that extra time, that time that is out, people can use it to devote to their own personal passion. And he says a lot of work has been taken over by automation. And excuse my French, I'm not the one that said it. He said it, and he said somebody called Graeber said a lot of bullshitization. And that's what I'm saying. This time that we're supposed to doing all this, I mean, that's why I'm also pro. Well, I know people will not agree with me. I'm pro remote, because when I'm in my house, there's no noise. Yes, I can. There are times I need to go into meetings with people and I talk, but then I am able to concentrate and do a 2 hour, maybe to say, okay, you know what? I'm blocking out my calendar 2 hours or 3 hours of deep dive work, and I accomplish it. And I'm not dealing with commute. I've not wasted 2 hours on the road and all that.
Yes, that was one thing he also mentioned. That commute is part of the reasons. Like,
Exactly.
you're spending like,
So
okay, look at Lagos. People that live in Lagos spending almost 2 hours to get to work. Especially in mainland, it doesn't make sense.
So you see why he's advocating for a shorter work week, and he's saying that Gen Z, it gives Gen Z the preciseness that they need to focus on their work. And the truth of the matter is, like, Gen Z is more independent. Yes, we may say that they like to work on their own. They may become recluses, whatever. They are more independent. They are less collaborative than us, the millennials. The millennials like to do teamwork, like to work with, but Gen Z is like, you know what, I got it, I'll do it. So that is why we have to take these things into consideration into our design of the future of work, right? So he's saying that all these excessive meetings, these meetings that don't make any sense, they're not going to fly with Gen Z. You see, and it's true, because you see some Gen Z, they're rolling their eyes like, what meeting is this? Do I need to be in this meeting? I don't need to be in this meeting. And the truth of the matter is that when you go to the meeting, what have you really accomplished? I said people just talking over themselves, and then you come out and you do not achieve anything. So he's saying that Gen Z would thrive better in a work environment where they produce results in a fun, engaging, pleasurable way. And he talked about gamification of work. So when you're doing work and it's fun, it's not like, it's such a chore to do.
Yeah.
So he says, yes, a good compensation is great. It brings competition and all that, but, create that, workplace where they can focus and then do engaging work. And he repeats again, he says there's a lot of unlearning of management science that needs to be done. This 20th century work.
All these numbers that we like to crunch.
You said that this 20th century work is not going anytime soon. I kind of disagree with you. Well, maybe in Nigeria, it may take some time for us to catch on.
Yeah, but the demise will be slow, but it will disappear. Yes. It will happen.
But then abroad, in the Western world, I was reading today, I was looking at the stats today. With this GPT 4.0, they said I think it's by 2035 or something, cashiers, there was a list of jobs, these jobs that are just repetitive.
That will be gone.
Wiped away. Okay, he talked about secretaries, said those ones will be wiped. See now, GPT 4.0 is doing the thing for you. I was watching demonstrations of what you can do today, and I was like, So, 20th century job is actually, fading away quickly. It's just that it may take some time before it catches on in Nigeria, but then that doesn't mean we should be caught unawares. We have to get with the time, because now everything is a global village.
Yeah.
And so he's saying that Gen Z will not tolerate the kind of work environment as described. So what do we do to redesign the workplace for them? He also talked about, the hiring process. He says that we should go beyond this traditional hiring process, because the truth of the matter is that sometimes this traditional hiring process that we do, people are just giving you the answers they think that you should give. You're not seeing the real person.
Yeah, exactly.
And so he has advocated for,
robotic.
because you put on a performance, yes, you have been taught how to answer the question. I work under pressure. When I did this, when I'm in interviews, I just tell the person, I say, please, you can also tell me your, the things you feel that like, let's have the human, but everything doesn't have to be right or wrong. That doesn't have to be right. Yes. Yes, now I don't work under pressure. Right now, the person that comes to the office, you now see a different thing. So he's saying that, it's better to give them simulation projects, so you have a feel for how this person actually works. And I'll give you an example. When I was working in an engineering firm, at the time we were manning up for a really huge project, and there was a particular discipline, project controls. There was this software that was being used. It was a new software. Nigerians really had, not many Nigerians were using it. So we had mainly a lot of experts using it. However, the person that was the hiring manager was a Nigerian who had used it. And so we had done a short, I can't work, yes, Nigeria is pressure. We had done a short list of people that said they could use the software. And the hiring manager, we sat in on the interview, and the hiring manager, when they are talking nice, flowery discussion, when they finish saying all their speech, you just got them, say, okay. He would now, at the end of the interview, say, look at that board, go and do this, that. Then you will now see people that will be shaking. He said, but you say you can use, you are proficient in
this software.
Come on. So and with that kind of interview process, we're able to filter out and get the right people that actually could do the work. We showed that they could actually. So he would give them, real life examples and tell them to solve,
No
and so that's
problem.
what Anthony is saying, that, we need to do a shift from the traditional, especially for certain roles that require, to have their hands-on skills. You need to do simulation projects, to see. And he's saying that you have to make sure to fully understand what someone means rather than what they're saying. Because, sometimes interviews are just show, yes, it's lots of flowery words, but when it now comes to actually doing the work, you will now be like, but in your interview, this is what you said. Then you now see that it's different. So he's saying that he also talks about hiring internally. Yes, that hiring you should look inwards first before you go out. Yeah. He talked about
I think that was something that used to be, I think that's how career growth actually was happening for organizations before. So I don't know when this new idea of going outside before you look internally, how it started.
I won't say it's well spread. You still see some people. Sometimes it's also see feeling, these people cannot do the work. Let's bring in someone fresh. I'm an advocate for a balance. Yes, you can hire internally, but then you also need the fresh, but yeah, most times there are some companies that have a policy that before they even go out, take the vacancy out, let's look inwards first of all. And even if you have someone who's not able, who has the basic capacity, you can upskill. Yeah. So, that's something that, companies need to look at. He's saying that you should allow your employees have personality. So apart from culture, when you're hiring, say you should not hire just for culture fit, but for team fit. And he gave an example of Whole Foods. Whole Foods is a subsidiary of Amazon. Amazon bought it over. He said that when they were doing their hiring, it's the teams that took over the hiring. So they would, bring in the hire for a trial period. And so the person will come and work with them for a trial, and then the team would do a vote on whether the person can stay or not. So of course, at the end of the day, majority carries the vote. So you can imagine if they feel like this person is not a good fit for their team, the person is gone. And he says, so it validates his point around going beyond the traditional recruitment to actually determining if they are a right fit or not. And then he talked about, these hours. He said he's clamoring for, it's not about how many hours you put into the job, it's the quality of work you put in.
Yeah.
I had someone I knew that worked in a place, and this is in Nigeria, so let's not say it's there, it's here. Somebody was working, but it wasn't a Nigerian organization though.
Okay.
She said that where she worked, that they were not concerned, and this was way beyond COVID though. She was doing remote, her work was hybrid. So there were times in the week that they needed to come to work because maybe they were having meetings or whatever, maybe once a week or whatever, sometimes even in a month, maybe like twice in a month or whatever. But what all the organization wanted was you had your deliverables for the week, deliver your deliverables. So if you choose that you want to do all your deliverables on Wednesday, that's up to you. But give your deliverables. But nobody's breathing down your neck to say, when did you log in? When did you log out? And they were churning out great work. That's what works for them. But that's what Anthony is saying. He's saying it's not about how many hours the middle managers checking timesheets. He's saying you should concentrate on the quality of work. It's not about your paycheck should not be around how many hours you've worked, but a reflection of your contribution to the company. Then he went a bit technical and talked about happiness, how happiness at work can be measured, where he talked about the gen ratio and the total motivation, which is TOMO. Then the gen ratio is a little bit less scientific. He says to determine that as a manager, you sit and watch a space and then watch for micro interactions over a set period of time. So you can also do that in face-to-face meetings or virtual meetings. So you're watching people to see, okay, the positive reactions, you take note of them, the negative reactions, you take note of them. And then when you now tally, if the positives are more, then your gen ratio is high, right? That means people are happier. And then if the negative ratio is higher, then he also talks about the TOMO. TOMO is a bit more scientific, but he says that your own job is you can start with the gen ratio and then move to the TOMO because that's a bit more scientific. But he says your job is to create a framework, an environment that acknowledges that an employee is more than the job they do, right? Sure. And they're not just a piece of furniture. Now, this is the last chapter. He says, what's the road ahead for HR management? Because like I said at the beginning of this review, in 10 years, Gen Z is going to form 30% of the workforce. So he's saying that nobody's going to be your company forever. But when it is time for them to leave, treat them well. Yeah. He says, keep the connections. And then that's why he talks about alumni, right? Some people have alumni groups because he says those are very important, because you might want to keep in contact, keep in touch because of those skills that they have. He talks about a company on another spectrum that called firing graduation. He cringed at that. He said that was crazy, where employees are given what value over replacement player. So like in baseball, if you don't perform, then you're replaced immediately. He's saying that no, that shows that you're just valuing metrics over humanity. And he said he gave Netflix and LinkedIn as examples of such companies. I'm not the one that said it. Anyway, he says, yes, so some companies do have blessings. Some companies have alumni groups. He says, as the HR manager, you're supposed to prioritize the management of this network of people flowing in and out of your organization. Treat them well. Because having these alumni groups gives you access to skills, because it's possible that they develop those skills in your organization. So you want to keep connected to those skills, because those people can be people that will refer you to people. And who knows, down the line, you can always call on these people if you have a job and they may be there. I've had experiences like that. People that say, oh, I'm available to work on this project short time. For a temporary time or whatever, or I can refer someone to, so yes, alumni, your net promoter, as is that, thank you. And then he now talked about culture. He said culture is not about perks, please. That when you say they do free pizza every day, they have game rooms, that's not culture. He says culture is about putting into practice everything he has talked about today. Discarding Taylorism. Remember we talked about Taylorism? Discarding obsolete management science paradigms for a future-proof workplace.
Stop crunching numbers, in essence.
Yeah, stop talking about just numbers. Look at the people. See your people as beyond numbers. They're not machines, they're human beings. So he's saying as a HR professional, you need to get more involved. Demonstrate that you actually value and care. Yes, the pizza will be there. That's not the culture. He says, show that you actually value and care about people. Ask the tough questions. Don't be afraid to ask people to know how, to feel their pulse points. Ask them, what's something at the company nobody dares talk about? Are you afraid of anything at work? What do you think we could have done differently to make NECA succeed? What advice would you give before we, involve people? What advice would you give before we embark on this project? Get to the emotion of your teams and managers. Don't allow automation take over your processes. Keep the human in HR. And he says, we are in a rush to automate things, but not everything needs to be automated. So don't get carried away, because there's so much automation that is going on. We're going dizzy. But sit down, take a deep breath and ask yourself, do I need to automate this thing? Can I still keep it human? You don't want someone to be talking to a bot. Maybe you still need a human being. So think about it, yeah? And he says, forget about all this talk about we are family. Leave that one. Strive to be an ally of the people's family. And how are you an ally? By treating that person well. Then you're taking care of that person for their own family. So leave all this flowery talk about being a family. And he's saying that Gen Z, because they were raised in technology, they can smell the fluff a mile away. So when you're saying you see it on Twitter now, people they will say, they say we are family. Good job. They already know that you're talking nonsense. So they need to see that you care about them. So because Gen Z is all about purpose, they're concerned about why. That's why they can't thrive doing meaningless work, right? They need to have a sense of purpose. So make sure that as a leader, you set the culture, and not that he's saying, do as I say, not do as I do. You have to walk the talk. Yeah. And he goes again to say, MBA programs are actually doing more harm than good. If you're going for MBA program, I'm not saying you shouldn't go, is what Anthony said, but he's saying that I guess even if you're going for those programs, balance it out and look towards, future, don't carry those obsolete principles in your head. So he's saying that as a HR leader, the onus lies on us to retrain management leaders how to genuinely treat employees like people, right? Management needs to be less combative. He says good leadership is like good parenting. Make sure trust, you need to get the trust of your people to have a great relationship with them. Give credit where due and celebrate wins. So he says now that you've done all the right things, you may make mistakes along the way, but he says keep at it. you keep keeping at it and it becomes a habit and then it becomes automatic. So be intentional about implementation. Keep evaluating frequently. Don't just get caught up in lots of metrics so you lose the big picture. Yeah. And when you do this, you're becoming a better HR person for the Gen Z employee or the talent, and acknowledge that all they want to do, you see, beneath all these things that they are doing, all they are just saying is that they want to be treated well. They need to be listened to. They need to be understood, right? So don't use processes and frameworks to shackle them, but use them to enable them. It says everyone has a right to meaningful employment, but we see that Gen Z has fewer opportunities. So let's design a workplace that is great enough for them to thrive. And that brings us to the end of our review. I hope that with this, tomorrow when you go to work and you see your Gen Z acting up, you can kind of understand where they're coming from, and then say, okay, let's level, let's talk. Let's talk. I get you. You don't need to act up. I get you. But yeah, I mean, it was an interesting book. It also made me
very interesting.
It made me understand the perspective of the Gen Z.
Gen
Even though
Zs,
sometimes they do act up. At the end of the day, we all want the same thing, kind of, but in different ways.
Yeah.
So thanks, guys. I know we've spent so much time. It would be nice for us to talk about it, but I'm seeing everyone's comments. Well, thank you, as usual, for being my partner in crime.
See, I just draw a lot from you. Listening to you is just...
I draw back from you. But yeah, so guys, I hope that, with this, you kind of see the perspective of Gen Z, and then you're prepared, for the workplace of the future. Now, you start preparing for them now, so that you are not, when it's time, you're not pushed along the wayside.
Exactly.
Thanks.
Very true.
Thanks, Ua. Thanks
like
a
you
lot.
said, that's why I don't read new book this night. So he did not read this. Oh my God.
Okay, so let's hand over to Yemi. Yeah, send the book to some people. Let them read so that they understand Gen Z.
Exactly.
Yemi, are you there?
Is he hearing us? Or he's gone somewhere?
I don't know. Is he still with us? Abi, Gen Z.
Bless you. What are we sending to you, please?
She said she wants the book so that she can send to some people.
Oh God.
Yeah, I guess some people need to read this book, but yeah, it's a really interesting.
Yeah, it did a lot of work. Like from beginning to end, he attacked some issues. Like I said, I didn't really like the fact that I couldn't relate it to, like, there are some things that are actually very good, yes, but most of the data just felt like Americanized. Like I really would have enjoyed it if I saw more Nigerian aspects of it. But
you know what? It's a charge to us, everybody in this book, in this group. You guys, let's start writing books, that's,
very important, honestly.
The Nigerian climb, so that, we can also, speak our own experiences and all.
With you have
why
that.
Are you putting me on the spot? Why are you putting me on the spot now, But anyway, while we're waiting for, thanks guys for your amazing feedback. I don't know if anybody wants to say anything before Yemi. I don't know whether somebody has carried our senior Gen Z away, or I don't know.
As in there, after everything.
Okay, so does anybody have something to say quickly before we, maybe we just call it a day?
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
I've seen your comments, guys. Yeah, I like the interaction. Please keep it up. I love the interaction. We're going to have our next book, and I'll be knocking on some people. We will be knocking on some people's doors. So don't worry. Maybe next time you won't even be seeing me. I'll just be in the background. Some people will be doing the.
We'll just send you our love from the background.
Okay. So anyway, your door is closed, blessing. In fact, for that reason, I'm coming to you. I'm coming to you.
Gen Z wants peace and love, and we love millennials. Just stop looking at us like we're clueless.
Millennials want peace and love too. We also want peace and love. That's why we're here talking about it, so we can understand you guys, and you guys too understand us. We're not,
exactly.
It's not a fight. It's not a fight. It's not a battle. We all need to understand each other. Maybe we need to look for the book that talks about millennials so that Gen Z can understand millennials as well.
We'll find that book.
Who is Gen Alpha? Oh my God. Let's see your Gen Alpha.
Please.
Where's Omega? Okay. Anyway, sorry, when
Okay.
do you draw the line between all these things being mentioned and Gen Z just being unrealistic? And
Okay. That makes sense.
I
How do you
think
draw
so
the
from the
line?
book, there are certain things that we talked about that, actually, they're not unrealistic, where they say the Gen Z wants they want a job that gives them purpose,
Yeah.
a job that enhances their creativity, something that I don't want to come to work and I'm a zombie. I want to be given that creative space to, think creatively. Now, I remember, I think it was Annie that talked about on accountability. Now that's unrealistic because truth of the matter is that you're in a workplace, you do have to be accountable. Even when I talked about that workplace that I said, they're not checking, they're not breathing down their neck, they are not micromanaging them, but there is some level of accountability. I mean, yeah. So am I expected to pay you a salary and you're not supposed to be accountable to me? There has to be some level of accountability. So yeah. So I think the book gives a guideline as to some of the things that they're realistic. I mean, hey, they want purpose. There's nothing wrong with them wanting purpose. But when there are certain things, you hear stories now where somebody, you like people that have a what's the word now, dress code, and somebody is coming to work wearing slippers, and there are certain things they're like, come on. Yes, as much as we want to give you individuality, you also have to respect the confines of the workplace. There's a limit to things. So that's it. I mean, along the way we learn, we're learning. We're also learning these things because we haven't ever had to do with Gen Z. So we're learning along the way. Thanks, guys. Somebody said, working with Gen Z can be fun and tiring. Yes, it is. It can be. I mean,
if we're being realistic, working with any age group can be fun and tiring.
True, you're right.
There's a reason we have reverse, let's talk about us.
Yeah, let's talk about us, millennials. Let's talk about the Gen X, who can be maybe overbearing. Let's talk about the baby boomers that I've been here for 50 years. They cannot tell me what to do. I know
exactly.
So
like
everybody
this
has
small girl coming here and talking to me.
Exactly.
You are my boss. What's that?
Exactly.
I'm older than you. Those kinds of things. So
the baby boomer that is telling you, oh, you're a manager, but you're younger than I say, my friend, go and get me a cup of tea. That's also annoying. So, so everybody has their own. Every generation has their own. That's the truth, But we need to understand each other so that we can work well with each other.
Very true.
Okay. So I mean, yes, I know we all have work tomorrow, so let's not keep us since our senior Gen Z is out. Okay, Ayomide says, plus I think feedback works. Yes, tell me what I'm doing right. Yes, there's something. Yes, I remember reading somewhere that Gen Z loves feedback. I also love feedback. I'm not Gen Z, but if I'm only hearing what I'm doing wrong, yes, I agree. I agree with you, Ayomide. It can feel really tiring when all I hear is you're doing wrong, you're doing wrong. I mean, I can imagine how exasperating it is. Lesson says that chair is for Gen Z. I can imagine how exasperating it is. So yes, please let your feedback be balanced. I'm talking to you, millennial bosses and all that. You're talking to your Gen Z people. Please, not every time complain. There must be something that is good that they're doing. Give them back to encourage them. So yeah, Ayomide is right.
Very true.
All right. What should we call it a day?
Yeah, I think we should, since we can't, because everybody needs to rest. I'm sure they
okay. Bless you, we can't stay here forever. Gen Z wants purpose. They want focus.
They want to go to bed early.
Let's close. Okay, so guys, thanks a lot. I mean, I really love this session. The fact that it was so interactive, I loved it. And Uwa, as usual, you've been such a great sport. My partner.
I'm learning from my boss, my oga.
Anyway, so guys, see you for the next. Thanks, Chinelo. See you for the next book review, hopefully soon. But like I said, we'll be knocking at people's doors so that we can have another great review. But thanks a lot, guys, for being a part of it. I mean, we couldn't have done it without you guys. So thank you, and thanks to Yemi too.
2 weeks from now, right? So we can move to the next book.
Yeah.
2 weeks from now.
All right. Okay, Good night, guys. Good night, everyone. Good night, Uwa.
Good night.
Good night, Gen Z.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.